Brought to you by Penguin.
The Smuggler's Wife by Evie Grace. Read by Annie Aldington. Chapter 1. A Breath of Fresh Air. Deal, June 1815. It was all very well Louisa warning her off. Grace's eldest sister had her best interests at heart, but she didn't know that she had a fancy for Isaiah so strong that she couldn't eat or sleep. Not only was he a Deal boatman who could be relied upon to go out in the fiercest of storms, risking his life to save others whose vessels foundered on the sands, he was landlord of the Rattling Cat pub and a notorious smuggler. He was a loner. Grace often saw him walking along the beach with his grey long dog at his heels. Yet he was leader of a gang, capable of inspiring respect and loyalty. The contradictions intrigued her, and it helped enormously that he was also dark and handsome, and at least as tall as her, she thought, smiling to herself. "Where do you think you're going?" Louisa stepped across the hall and stood between Grace and the front door as she tied the laces on her boots. "Back to the market before it closes. I've got to buy the bread." It wasn't a lie exactly. She had accidentally on purpose forgotten to pick up a loaf with the rest of the shopping. "Haven't I told you before to take a list with you?" "On many an occasion," Grace wanted to say, but she managed to bite her tongue just in time. "I don't feel so good. Having been staring at the accounts all morning, maybe a breath of fresh air will perk me up. Why don't I come with you?" "You look well enough to me," Grace said, standing up. Tall, slender and blue-eyed, they were peas from the same pod, except that Louisa was 5 years older than Grace and an inch shorter, and her hair was a dark brown, while Grace's was the colour of ebony. "Where is your sympathy for your hard-working sister? Let me put my ledger away and fetch my bonnet. It's a lovely day. We can walk along the beach afterwards." "Are you sure you wouldn't prefer to go and have a lie down?" Grace suggested, but Louisa had made up her mind. Her plot foiled to see Isaiah again, Grace reached for the willow basket on the shelf, at which a pair of green eyes peered over the top. "Oh, Kitty," she said. "What's that creature doing lazing around in there when she's supposed to be earning her keep?" Louisa grumbled lightly. "She's done her work for today. Tell me when you last saw or heard of Mika." "Not for a while," Louisa admitted. "Mrs. Witherell next door says she's overrun with them while we have none, proof of Kitty's prowess." "I'll suggest she gives her board and lodgings then, on a permanent basis." Grace's exclamation of protest sent the fluffy black cat leaping out of the basket onto the floor. "You wouldn't! I couldn't bear it!" Grace noticed the alteration in Louisa's expression. "You are shamming me." "I am indeed. Although I was very annoyed when Isaiah pressed you into having her, she's turned out to be rather endearing." Smiling, Louisa looked down to where Kitty was winding herself around her legs, then glanced back up. "Hark! Do you hear that?" Straining her ears, Grace listened for the faint medley of sound coming from the distance. Gradually, it grew louder, and she began to distinguish the individual parts. The voice of the town crier, the steady beat of a drum, cheering and laughter, a piper's merry hornpipe, a troop of fiddlers scraping their strings. The church bells pealed, and the ship's bells clanged relentlessly from the roadstead. "What is it? Has the world come to an end?" She pushed the front door open. Kitty dashed outside and shot back in again. "Miss! Miss! Have you heard the news?" One of a gaggle of shore boys, who were half running, half walking along the alley, stopped outside Cumper's cottage. 14-year-old Cromwell's face was as brown as a nut, his eyes alight with excitement. "I can't say that I have," Grace said, as Louisa leaned on her shoulder to listen to what he had to say. "The Duke of Wellington and his men have beaten old Boney at Waterloo." "Is that the truth of it?" Grace touched her throat. She was 17, almost 18, and she couldn't recall a time when England hadn't been at war with France, when they hadn't lived in fear of Napoleon and his great army crossing the Channel.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?